It took less than 5 seconds for my perfect life to fall apart, and it all started with a simple, breathtaking act of betrayal. A theft, not of my wallet or my watch, but of my greatest joy, a car that was more than just metal and engine. It was my beautiful, custom-built Lamborghini Aventador, and it was gone. My name is Ethan, and that car wasn't just a purchase. It was a symbol of everything I'd worked for. Every late night, every stressful project, every single sacrifice I'd made over the last 15 years. Its pearlescent coat, a unique shade I had commissioned myself, shimmered like a desert mirage in the Florida sun. The carbon fiber chassis, the roar of its V12 engine, it was a symphony of engineering and a work of art. My days often began with a quiet moment in the garage, just admiring it, running a clean cloth over its sleek contours before taking it for a spin. This car was my escape, my pride, and the one thing in my life that felt untouchably perfect. But in my otherwise ideal life, there was one constant source of friction, a relentless thorn in my side. Carol. She was the president of our homeowners association, and her self-appointed title had gone to her head. Carol was the kind of person who saw the world not in shades of gray, but in a rigid list of regulations and bylaws. My car, with its flamboyant color and powerful engine, was a constant source of offense to her minimalist, bay sensibilities. She would leave passive-aggressive notes on my windshield about non-conforming vehicle aesthetics and excessive engine noise. The tension between us was an open secret in the neighborhood. We were two worlds, one of vibrant individuality, the other of suffocating conformity, constantly on a collision course. Then there was Tyler, Carol's son. A 15-year-old with the kind of entitled smirk that made you want to just wipe it off his face. I'd seen him more than once, lurking at the end of my driveway, his eyes glued to my Lamborghini. He would ride by on his skateboard, trying to get a closer look, his fascination bordering on obsession. I'd simply smile and nod, a polite nod that said, "That's my car, kid," never imagining that his unhealthy interest would soon become the biggest problem of my life. I had no idea that this boy, fueled by a dangerous mix of entitlement and a thirst for power, was already plotting to take the one thing I valued more than anything. He wanted to feel what it was like to be me for just a moment, and he was willing to destroy everything in his path to get it. The morning started like any other. The Florida sun was already warm on my face as I walked to the garage, coffee in hand, the faint scent of freshly brewed beans a familiar comfort. I reached for the garage door opener, my mind already picturing the gleam of the Aventador under the lights. The door rumbled open, revealing nothing. The space where my car should have been was empty. The pristine concrete floor, usually home to a work of automotive art, was a silent, vacant canvas. My heart, which had been beating at a gentle, easy pace just seconds before, lurched into a frantic, hammering rhythm. I dropped the coffee mug, the sound of porcelain shattering against the floor echoing the fragments of my peaceful morning. Panic set in fast. I ran out into the street, my eyes scanning the cul-de-sac, the neighbors' driveways, as if the car would suddenly reappear. I checked my security cameras, my hands shaking as I rewound the footage from the night before, only to find the critical moments were a corrupted, black screen. I went to the neighbors' houses, but no one had seen or heard anything. When I approached Carol's house, her face hardened into a familiar, condescending mask. "Perhaps you misplaced it, Ethan," she said, the insinuation clear, as if I had simply forgotten where I parked a $500,000 supercar. Just as her smugness was becoming unbearable, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Hi, is this Ethan?" a rough voice on the other end asked. "I'm a tow truck driver. Found a wrecked vehicle. Looks like it matches the description of a high-end sports car, custom paint, black accents. Found it way out on County Road 21, near the old quarry." My stomach dropped, the blood draining from my face. I gave a shaky yes and hung up, not waiting for another word. I sped toward the location, a knot of dread tightening in my chest with every mile. The scene was worse than I could have imagined. The car was a mangled, unrecognizable heap of twisted carbon fiber and mangled metal. It was a tomb. As I stared at the horrifying wreckage, the color draining from its once brilliant paint, I noticed a small, personal item on the ground next to it, a faded, scuffed skateboard deck with a unique sticker of a skull wearing headphones. It was the same one Tyler, Carol's son, was always riding. My worst fear was confirmed. The skateboard deck felt heavy in my hand, a small but damning piece of evidence. The moment I clutched it, the shock of the car's destruction transformed into a searing, focused rage. I drove my other car, a dependable sedan that felt dull and lifeless after the Lamborghini, directly to Carol's house. I didn't bother with the doorbell. I hammered on the door, the sound a desperate echo of my fury. Carol opened it, her face a mask of practiced annoyance. Her eyes, however, flitted down to the skateboard in my hand, and for a fleeting instant, I saw a flash of fear before her usual smugness returned, stronger than ever. "Ethan," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "I told you, I have nothing to say about your misfortune. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an important HOA briefing to prepare for. It wasn't a misfortune, Carol, it was your son. I found this at the scene of the wreck." I thrust the skateboard forward, the skull sticker a morbid symbol of her son's recklessness. Her eyes narrowed, her lips pressing into a thin, venomous line. "My son, you have no right to accuse my child. He's a good boy. This is simply a malicious and baseless accusation. You have a vendetta against me and the association, and now you're dragging my family into it." She began to raise her voice, her theatrical performance in full swing. "I am going to report this harassment to the authorities." Just then, Tyler, her son, sauntered into the entryway, a smirk plastered on his face. He saw the skateboard, then looked at me, a flicker of something triumphant in his eyes. "Hey, Ethan, what's up? What's up? You know what's up. Tyler, you took my car. You wrecked it." My voice trembled with a mix of fury and disbelief at his brazen nerve. Tyler let out a hollow laugh. He looked at his mother, then back at me, his lie already prepared and polished. "Whoa, dude, chill out. You said I could take it for a spin. I was just, trying to help you out, you know. You said I could take it, and if I liked it, you'd even let me have it. You said it yourself." My jaw went slack. The audacity was staggering. I said what? I stammered. "You heard me. You said it was, a gift. I mean, it's not my fault you're regretting your grand gesture now that it's all torn up." He gestured dismissively with his hand, as if talking about an old toy. Carol immediately seized on his fabricated story. "You see, Ethan, you see what kind of man you are. You give away a priceless vehicle, and now you're trying to blame my innocent son for your carelessness. This is why we need stricter rules in this neighborhood. Your reckless and irresponsible actions led to this. Not my son's. He was simply trying to do you a favor. He was just trying to help, and you're trying to ruin his life for it." The scene was a sickening spectacle of twisted reality. Carol, seeing an opportunity not just to defend her son, but to publicly humiliate me, took out her phone. "I'm calling an emergency HOA meeting. The entire community needs to be aware of the danger you present." Later that evening, the HOA clubhouse was packed. The air was thick with the scent of stale coffee and whispered gossip. Carol stood at the front, a PowerPoint presentation already pulled up on a screen. She had a list of bullet points detailing my alleged transgressions: irresponsible vehicle ownership, negligence causing public hazard, and breach of community trust. She painted me a reckless man-child who had left my keys in the car, encouraging a teenager to joyride and crash into a protected area, causing thousands of dollars in damages to public property. She made it sound like I was a public menace. Her performance was masterful. She was a natural at making a lie sound like the absolute truth. Tyler stood next to her, his head down, feigning remorse, a perfect act. The community, swayed by Carol's powerful oratory and her son's supposed repentance, began to whisper amongst themselves, their eyes darting towards me with thinly veiled judgment. My supposed friend, Mark, whom I had golfed with every weekend, stood up. I thought he was going to defend me. Instead, he cleared his throat and said, "I think Carol has a point. We have to be a community. And Ethan, this is a mess. It's a bad look for all of us. I think we need to side with what's best for the neighborhood." He sided with them. My knees went weak. The betrayal from a friend was more painful than the injustice from my enemy. I was completely alone. The meeting ended with a formal vote to condemn my actions, a vote Carol had carefully orchestrated. As I walked away from the clubhouse, a woman from the HOA board handed me a heavy envelope. I ripped it open, my hands shaking. Inside was a formal notice from the HOA, a demand for payment. It itemized the damages from my car's reckless abandonment to broken sprinkler heads, a cracked section of sidewalk, and the emotional distress caused to the community. They were demanding I pay for the very damage their son had caused. The amount was astronomical, a final, spiteful insult. The notice from the HOA landed in my lap like a lead weight, but it also ignited something inside me. The initial rage and sense of betrayal transformed into a cold, determined resolve. I wasn't just going to pay a fine, I was going to fight back. I couldn't trust anyone in this community anymore, so I knew the investigation had to be mine alone. I put on a hoodie and a baseball cap, grabbed a pair of latex gloves, and drove back to the quarry. I arrived at the scene of the wreck under the cover of darkness, the mangled remains of my car a ghostly monument in the moonlight. I wasn't there to mourn. I was there to find something, anything, they had missed. I crawled around the debris field, a flashlight in my hand, looking for anything that could have been overlooked. I found nothing new. Defeated, I turned my attention to the social media accounts I had managed to dig up for Tyler, his friends, and anyone they associated with. I scoured their feeds, looking for a clue, a boastful picture, a careless comment. Hours turned into days. I came up empty. Just when I was about to give up, a direct message popped up in my inbox. It was from a person I didn't recognize, with an account name that gave no clues to their identity. The message read, "I saw something you should see." I didn't want to get involved, but what they're doing is wrong. The message contained a cryptic address, a URL that led to a small, private website. It was a long shot, but I clicked the link. The website was password protected. I tried a few random passwords, then a few more. Nothing worked. After several attempts, I was about to give up when I remembered a detail I had overlooked: the headphones with a skull sticker on Tyler's skateboard. I typed in skull_headphones. The page loaded. It was a forum, a group of local teenagers, a street racing club, and there, buried in a deep, dark corner of the forum, was a video. The timestamp matched the night my car went missing. I clicked play, my heart pounding in my chest. The video was shot from a cell phone camera. It showed Tyler, my beautiful car, and a few other boys. The footage was grainy, but the voices were clear. I heard Tyler bragging to his friends about getting the keys to my car. He said he was going to take it for a joyride. Then, the video took a dark turn. One of the other boys, a kid I didn't recognize, stepped forward. "Hey, man," he said, "you're not just taking it for a ride. You owe me?" The boy demanded that Tyler take the car and crash it. The plan, as it was laid out, was to make it look like an accident and then frame me for it. Tyler, in a moment of panic and desperation, had agreed. The video was a confession. It was the crucial plot twist. My blood ran cold as I watched the rest of the footage. It showed Tyler driving my car away, followed by his friends in another car. They drove to the quarry, where the other boy intentionally caused the accident by swerving into my lane, forcing Tyler to crash. The video went on to show the other boy laughing, taking a picture of the wreck. Then, another piece of the puzzle fell into place. The video showed Carol. She had been there with them. She was standing behind the other boy. She gave him money and patted her son on the back. She had known all along. She had been a part of the conspiracy. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a setup. The entire thing was a meticulously planned ambush to destroy me and my reputation. The video ended with Carol's voice, a chilling whisper in the dark. "Don't you worry, Tyler, he'll take the fall for this. No one will ever know it was US." My heart sank. Not only was her son a liar, but Carol was a master manipulator, willing to throw a man under the bus to protect her son and save her own face. The second HOA meeting was called for 7 p.m. on a brisk Thursday evening. This time, however, the invitation came from a neutral party, a junior board member who felt the previous meeting had been a sham. When I walked in, all eyes were on me. The whispers were back, but this time they were laced with a sense of anticipation and unease. Carol, standing at the head of the room with Tyler by her side, gave me a triumphant, knowing smirk. She was confident that her word was law and that her power was absolute. She began her spiel, recapping the same lies she had spun at the first meeting, painting me a reckless man-child and her son as a misguided youth who was trying to do a good deed. This time I wasn't alone. A lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman I had hired that morning, stood beside me. She cleared her throat, a sound that cut through Carol's monologue. "We have some new evidence to present," she said, her voice firm and unwavering. With a few clicks, she connected her laptop to the projector. The room, which had been buzzing with chatter, fell silent. The video began to play. The grainy footage showed the late-night conversation, Tyler's friends goading him, the boy with the cold eyes who demanded my car be wrecked. And then, the final, crushing blow, the moment the camera caught Carol's face, her smug, knowing smile, her whisper of a promise that he'll take the fall for this. A collective gasp echoed through the room. It was as if someone had pulled a rug out from under everyone's feet. The faces of my neighbors, who had so easily condemned me just a week prior, shifted from suspicion to abject shock, then to a simmering, righteous anger. Carol's face, once a mask of smug assurance, went white. She tried to stammer out a protest, to claim the video was doctored, but her voice was a thin, panicked croak. Tyler, who had been standing with his head bowed in a feigned act of contrition, now looked up, his eyes wide with fear. The performance was over, and the curtain had been pulled back on their grotesque farce. The community turned on them. The whispers that had once been about me were now about her. The same neighbors who had been so quick to judge me now looked at Carol with open contempt. The lawyer systematically dismantled every one of Carol's lies, presenting evidence that my car's security system had been intentionally disabled and that the towing company was, in fact, owned by a relative of the boy in the video. The entire scheme was a meticulously planned ambush. My friend Mark, who had betrayed me, stood up again. This time, his voice was laced with shame. He stammered out an apology to me, his eyes fixed on the floor. It was a small but significant moment of vindication. The meeting ended not with a vote, but with a universal, unspoken demand for Carol's resignation. She was utterly defeated. Her position of power, once used to manipulate and control, had crumbled. The next day, a formal announcement was posted on the HOA website stating that she was no longer the president. Tyler was charged with grand theft, auto and reckless endangerment, and the boy who instigated the scheme was also facing legal action. Carol's once pristine reputation was now in ruins. The Lambo was gone, a permanent loss that a court settlement could never truly replace. But in its place, I had gained something far more valuable. My name was cleared. My integrity was restored. The community, humbled by its own hasty judgment, now offered sincere apologies and a quiet, but genuine respect. A week later, I stood in my now empty garage. The space where the car once sat felt oddly peaceful. I wasn't just thinking about a car anymore. I was thinking about the tangled mess of human emotions, pride, envy, justice, and redemption that the wreck had exposed. I had lost a possession, but I had regained my peace of mind and my standing in the community. It was a new beginning. As I closed the garage door for the last time, I didn't feel a sense of loss. Instead, I felt a quiet satisfaction. The chapter was closed, and I was ready to drive into the future. A future without the heavy baggage of a lie.